So yeah, they get one of the microscope.
We've come uptown today. This is the Brown House, exclusive tailoring in the heart of Central in Hong Kong. That is Zac Purton, and he's getting suited and booted ahead of 2019 Longines HKIR. Mr. Purton is used to precision in the saddle, but today it's about precision tailoring and a bespoke chat with Hong Kong's champion. Okay, Zac, take me back, way back to your early days. Your family moved around quite a bit when you were young.
Yeah, we did. I was born in Lismore, which is northern New South Wales, and lived there until I was 7. Then we moved to Mount Gambier in South Australia, right down the bottom where the Bight is. It was quite windy and cold down there. We lived on the beach. Then we went to New Zealand for 5 years. My mum's a Kiwi, originally from Christchurch, but funnily enough, my mum didn't like it in New Zealand. She hated it and wanted to go back to Australia, so we did. We went back to Mount Gambier for another 12 months and then moved to Coffs Harbour when I was about 13 years old. And then from there, I found my way into a racing stable at 14 and a half.
What sort of kid were you?
Listen, I was always full of beans. I had plenty of energy. I played lots of sport.
I hear you were pretty good at some sports, track and field, for example.
I was Little Athletics champion.
Were you?
In New Zealand, yeah.
What was your
10.
main event?
I did everything. I was the best at everything, best all-round competitor. But I was very good at running. That was probably my forte. I was a good sprinter, but also good over a medium distance as well.
And when did you first begin to think that racing might be the thing for you?
When I was in New Zealand, I always remember going to my friends' houses and wanting to ride their horses, or I'd always badger mum and dad to go to their house so that I could ride the horses. And I had a keen interest from back then. I bumped up and down on Welsh Mountain ponies and Little Shetland ponies, and you can't really call that riding, but that was my introduction to the horseback. And once I moved to Australia and decided I wanted to be a jockey, well, I had to learn how to ride the thoroughbreds then, and that wasn't easy. I remember going around the track many times with no control. They were quite strong back then. They still are quite strong now, but I've grown a little bit more since then.
Who were your role models when you first started your apprenticeship?
Corey Brown was the jockey that I modelled myself on and I looked up to. He was from a similar area to where I'm from. But I just liked his seat on the horse, and it was through him that my interest in Hong Kong racing first came about as well, because he spent some time here. And when he left Australia to come to Hong Kong, that's when I started to tune in and watch the races here.
Did success come quickly when you started to race ride?
Yeah, very quick. In my first full season of riding, I rode 145 winners, which is a lot. I outrode my claim very quickly in the country and also in the city. So I had instant success right from the start. At that time, I think there was only 3 jockeys in Australia that were riding over 100 winners in a season. So it was a good effort. Gave me a lot of confidence to continue doing what I do now.
I'll phrase this slightly carefully, but I believe and hear that you used to run a bit free temperamentally in those days.
I've always had a strong will. With me, if you give me a little bit of leeway, or you let me run on the lead a little bit, then I'm okay. But when you want to snap on that lead and tell me what I've got to do and try and tie me down, well, I relent. I
also heard that legendary Aussie trainer Gay Waterhouse tried to run you through her academy of young gentlemen and bring you up to speed. How did that work out?
Yeah, Gay and I didn't get along that well. I rode for her for 12 months, and I must say it was the worst 12 months of my career. She just drove me mad every morning. Was always picking at something, always trying to tell me what to do. Told me who my friends could and couldn't be, which pubs and restaurants I was allowed to go to, what time I had to be home at bed at night. Tried to tell me how to even use cutlery at a dinner table and things like that. And yeah, it wasn't going to work with me.
So beautiful clothes and apparel here at Brown House today. How was your tailoring back then?
Yeah, not too good actually. I thought I looked good at the time, but looking back now and seeing some photos of the suits and whatnot I used to get around with, I wish I could get a lighter and burn all those photos, but they're stuck on a HD card.
Don't worry, we'll dig out a couple for this interview when the edit comes through. When did Hong Kong come calling? When did the idea first come to you, and when did the Jockey Club approach you?
I was quietly sounded out when I was still an apprentice in Brisbane. I was riding in Brisbane at the time, and I just knew myself it wasn't the right time for me to be coming to Hong Kong. I knew that you had to be a certain type of person, or you need to behave in a certain way, and I wasn't ready to do that at that stage of my career. So I ended up going to Sydney and rode there for a couple of years, and you know, once again I was approached by someone that used to work for the club here and asked me if I was interested through the stewards, and at that time I said, yeah, no worries, I'll give it a go. So I put an application in, and they rang back the next day and said I could start the next season, which you know, when I put the application in, the committee meeting was the very next day, or it was very close to that time. So they got me at the right time, and maybe I come at the right time too.
I want you to take you back to your first day for track work at Sha Tin, and keen to make a big impression, but not easy to actually get in to the racecourse, I believe.
No, I couldn't get out of the compound. They picked me up from the airport the day before and dumped me in the apartment, and basically said, okay, we'll see you at the races. And I went down the next morning all keen to ride a few horses. I couldn't get through the gate, I couldn't get through the fence, I didn't know where to go. I could see the track, but I didn't know how to get there, and the security guard must have seen me walking around. He came and grabbed me and took me over there. But once again, when I got to the sand area, I looked around, I was like, I don't know anyone. I didn't recognise anyone. The only people I knew were John Moore and David Hall. David Hall was in Melbourne when I was down there as an apprentice, but I don't ever remember riding for him, but obviously I knew who they were, and there were another couple of jockeys. Obviously Shane Dye was here at the time, Glenn Boss come at the same time as me to start that season, so outside of them, you know, I was on my own.
It's a bit of a struggle to get into the racecourse. Was it a struggle to get some traction in your career once you started to ride here?
It was. What people forget is when I first arrived, there were a large number of jockeys that had been here for a long period of time, whether it was 10 years, 15 years. They were well ingrained into society here and had all their connections. You know, we had Douglas White, Brett Preble, Olivier Deleuze, Eric Saint-Martin, Gerald Mosse, Danny Nikolic, Anthony Delpeche, Shane Dye, Kevin Shea, Glenn Boss arrived. Those two arrived at the same time as I did. You know, it was a very strong list of riders, and to get an opportunity was really, really difficult. Darren Beeben then arrived not long after that because EI struck in Australia. So it was a very hard time to start with, but I just kept turning up, kept working hard. Of course, there were times where I didn't think it was going to work.
Did you ever consider the possibility that it wouldn't work and you might go home?
Yeah, I did think about that. I actually asked Nicole when we were on holiday one time if she wanted to go home. I said, I've had enough, you know, we're just not getting the opportunities, not going to get a go, there's no use staying here. And she encouraged me to stay and stick it out and keep going. And the turning point was at the end of my first season. Glenn Boss had been riding a lot for Ricky Yu, and they had some type of falling out, and Ricky come to me and asked if I'd be interested in riding for him, and I thought, why not? I'm not riding for anyone else. So I rode 10 winners for him and another couple of trainers in the last month of the season. If you ride 10 winners in a month here, you're flying, you're going really well. So that laid the foundation to some extent to come back the next season. I thought I'd just be able to kick off where I left off and things would take off, but I come back and it was like no one knew who I was again, and I had to work out hard once again. And through the middle of the second season, things started getting a little bit better, and then from then on, I think I haven't been out of the top three jockeys from my third season onwards, and haven't been out of the top two for a long time now. I can't remember how long.
12 years here. Why do so many really good jockeys find it difficult here? Is it just simply because of the depth of the talent pool?
Well, yeah, well, I consider it's the strongest competition in the world. People from outside may look in and have different views on that, but we've seen many jockeys come here with huge reputations, or have left here and gone on to do great things, but for whatever reason have not done well in Hong Kong. And it's a unique environment. It makes you a lot sharper as a jockey. You need to be very switched on. You need to make decisions very quickly. You can't be humming and hawing about what you're going to do and be a bit lapsy-daisy. You need to commit. And, I think my attitude probably works in this place.
What's the one thing above anything else that a rider needs if they're going to thrive here?
I think a thick skin. You're going to put up with a lot of criticism. We get called in every meeting. The stewards are forever calling us in, asking us pedantic, small little questions, and a lot of jockeys don't appreciate that. That does their head in, because they think, they're at the top of their game and they're good at what they do. They don't need the stewards to be questioning them every single meeting on what they're doing, and then hearing about it around town from the owners and the local press that they're doing this wrong and doing that wrong. Whereas where they come from in other parts of the world, that's acceptable and that works well. But it obviously is not the way things work in Hong Kong, and you need to adapt. And it's just a different Shark Tank here.
Break it down into two halves. How's your actual riding technique changed in 12 years here, and how has your mental game, your attitude to the sport changed?
I think mentally I've always been very strong, and that's probably one of the things that have been able to help me get to where I am. Criticism sort of just bounces off my shoulder. I don't worry too much about it, which then affords me the ability to be able to go out there and trust myself and do what I do, and know that it works, and know that after a period of time people are going to accept that and give me a little bit more rein and allow me to do what I do. But it just comes down to support. You're not going to be able to ride winners if the owners and the trainers don't support you.
Let's move on to a related topic, if we can. So politics is an undercurrent everywhere in Hong Kong racing, whether you're a jockey, a trainer, owner even. You play this political game very well. No agents or managers for riders in Hong Kong. You have to get out there and hustle. Did that come naturally, based on what you've just told me, or did you sort of learn that skill over time?
No, it didn't come naturally at all, and that's why I didn't do very well in the beginning. I sat there and waited for the phone to ring, and of course I was just picking up the rides that no one else wanted. So over a period of time I had to learn how things happen or operate in Hong Kong, and adjust the way I approach things and did things, and listen to what the owners and the trainers told me that Douglas White and Brett Prebble, who were the leading two riders at the time, operated their businesses, and then I had to try and model myself on that and do what they did. Get out there on the phone and proactively chase rides, and that was probably the biggest turning point.
So you have to develop a nice pair of sharp elbows. Tell me about when you're effectively looking at promising horses who are ready to win, and thinking, yeah, I'd like to ride that horse. Is there no room for emotion when it comes to taking that ride from another person and securing the ride on a horse you've never ridden before? Is it just a case of strictly business?
Oh, listen, business is business. We're in the jungle. It's every man for themselves, really. Unfortunately for me, I probably am a little bit too soft.
Come on, seriously.
No. The other jockeys, they sort of bang on all the time. Please don't take this one, please don't take that one. Give me a chance here, give me a chance there, and it's
you're just too humble, Zac.
Oh no, it's tough, because I understand the pressure they're under and the position they're in. But if the owner or the trainer wants me to ride the horse, well, at the end of the day, they're paying the bills, and they get to choose who rides a horse.
Talk to me about assessing which horse you want to be on, sort of form study and that ability to sense when a horse is ready to peak and strike. That seems to be very important.
It is important. You need to do your homework, you need to watch the videos, you need to understand where the horse is in his preparation, whether he's at the right distance, the right rating. You just got to monitor all that. You also listen to what the trainers tell you. You sometimes listen to what the owners tell you, although the owners are always telling me their horse is ready to win, even when I know it's about 6 runs off being able to win. But you put that all into the mix, and make a decision. I quite enjoy having to make that decision myself, not having a manager. When I first come, obviously I struggled not having one, but now I enjoy not having one. I'd rather live and die by the decisions I make and not blame anyone else or lean on anyone else. I've been here long enough now to know how the system works.
How about managing trainers' expectations? It's a high-class problem to be in demand, but how do you juggle that issue?
Yeah, it's not easy. There's forever a little bit of simmering tension or a little bit of friction. Trainers will want me to ride for them more than I'm available to do so, and sometimes a closer relationship or a stronger friendship with a trainer can lead to trouble because he wants you to ride the horse and he reminds you that he's given you a lot of support and do him a favour here or do him a favour there. But as I found out at the start of this season, when I was doing a lot of trainers and a lot of owners favours, you end up on the wrong horses. So you've got to go back to what works, and like we said, business is business, and I'm in the business to ride winners.
Probably doesn't apply to you or hasn't for a long time, but I've heard it said that trainers will forget your number, won't text you, won't call you, will walk straight by you in the mornings if you're on the call list.
Yeah, of course. I see it more than I feel it, of course. But, I'll be in the trainer's stand and I get quite a warm welcome reception when I walk in there, and then I see other jockeys walk in and the trainers put their head down and look the other way, and I feel their pain. I understand what they're going through, but at the end of the day, they're trying to do the best for their stable and their owners as well, and they're not just going to throw you on a horse out of sympathy. The horses only stay in form for so long. You got to strike while the iron is hot, and that's the ruthless nature of Hong Kong racing.
Touched on owners, very colourful part of Hong Kong racing. Very important for jockeys to keep good relations with all the owners. How often are you networking, socialising, out for dinner with owners, etc.?
Obviously, the more winners you ride and the more successful you are, the more they want to catch up and take you out for lunch and dinner, obviously celebrating wins and things like that. So I'm always pretty busy, or fairly busy, although this season's been a little bit different with some things that have been happening. But it's a big part. It's an important part. Once they get to know you and your character and you build that relationship and that trust, then things are easier.
I've seen a lot of jockeys, how they handle their business close up over the years. I've never seen one quite like you who's so precise and so very well aware of everything that's coming up in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Is that just a real sharp memory you have, or an ability to prioritise? You seem to have this very unusual habit or knack of being able to say, yes, I can do that 3 weeks down the track. No, I'm away. You seem to know the calendar extremely well.
Well, I don't want my mind to get old, so I don't keep a diary or a notepad. I keep everything in my head. So there's a lot to remember. The horses that I have booked at the race meetings come up. I will write them down, of course, because that's important. You can't make any mistakes there. But when it comes to my social life, it's all kept in my head.
You seem to be able to juggle things in a very, very measured, skillful way. You say, yes, I can do that, or no, I'm not available then. How about this? You're a face of the franchise in Hong Kong. Do you enjoy that profile and the responsibility that comes with it?
It's something I've embraced. It's something that I do enjoy while I'm doing it. There's no doubt about that. It's great to be involved, but I will also enjoy it when I go back to Australia and I can slip back into society and be anonymous and have not many people know who I am, and just be a regular person.
Let's bring things more up to the present. Wednesday night at Happy Valley in HKIR week is a tremendous occasion, Longines International Jockeys Championship. You went close several times, hit the crossbar a few times before you won it in 2017. It's a big night in Hong Kong racing.
It's a great night, and it sets the tone for the rest of the week, really. Happy Valley is a great venue. It's a great race course. under lights with the beer garden, the music, and the various other things that are going on as well. You know, you get the fireworks get let off, which always seem to spook or scare a few people. But everyone's in town for a good time. It's an important week because there's so much at stake. But it's also nice to catch up with everyone. And like you said, the IJC, it's a great event. We've got a really good lineup of jockeys this year.
Does having those heavy hitters in town add to the tension, add to the excitement of it?
Well, it does, of course. You know, the bigger name sports person you can get, or horse you can get, it adds a lot more, I suppose, meat to the bone. And you know, we all look forward to it. But unfortunately, when it comes to the IJC, it's a bit of a random draw, and quite often you can just get stuck on horses that have just got no chance at all. And I've been asking the club for quite some time to change the format to make it a lot more even, because I've seen, you know, I'm here so I don't have to travel anywhere, so it's not too disappointing. But when you travel halfway around the world and you get stuck on a few horses that just aren't going to be competitive in the races, it can be disappointing for them. So I don't know how the club makes it more competitive, but you know, that's their job. I'm sure they've got someone smarter than me to try and work that out.
Frankie Dettori's back in Hong Kong riding for the first time since 2011 as a peer and a rival, and someone who's experienced a lot of what he's experienced. How do you set his career and achievements in context?
He's probably the most successful jockey we've ever seen in the world, really. You know, there's nothing out there that Frankie hasn't been able to achieve. Well, there's one race I can think of, but outside it, he's achieved everything else. But you know, he's been a phenomenal jockey over a long period of time. He's ridden a lot of really good horses, ridden for a lot of great connections, and at the end of the day, it comes down to the support you get, but you have to make the most of that opportunity, and he's certainly done that. It'll be good to ride against him again. He's very flamboyant, and no doubt he will shine brightly when the camera's on him, because that's what Frankie does.
Hong Kong is Premier League in every respect. We all know that. But it also comes with certain restrictions for a jockey in that it prevents riders travelling globally like the Dettoris do, like the Sumions, etc., etc. Is that a mild regret that you don't get a chance to go away as often as you'd like and ride those real big Group 1s?
Yeah, it is. It would be great if the Jockey Club could revise their contract or their rules or the way they approach it. As we've seen this year, I led the World's Best Jockey competition for so many months. Frankie only just overtook me recently, and I think I only rode in 7 out of the top 100 races. If the Jockey Club was kind enough to allow me to go to other places around the world to accumulate more points and try and win that, then there's no doubt they would be proud of that as well, and it'd be something everyone in Hong Kong would feel as if they were a part of. But they don't allow us to miss any meetings in Hong Kong, and I suppose you've got to take the good with the bad. I made the decision to be here, and they don't handcuff me to the table. They don't force me to be here. It's my decision to stay here, but I feel they could be a little bit more flexible. Talk
to me about several really big days you've had abroad. Talk about hit and run to Royal Ascot. One day, one ride, one winner, Little Bridge in the King Stand Stakes for Danny Shum, and also Aero Velocity in Japan, a very big day. Yeah, well, Little Bridge is a day I'll never forget, really. It's the first time I'd been to the UK. As you know, you wear the top hat and tails and get dressed right up. And it was just a fantastic trip for all of us, because we went there thinking we could win. The market didn't expect us to win, neither did the public. And so the night before, we went to Scalini's in London, and it has the glass roof. And, you know, I don't know why I forgot that the sun goes down so late in summer over there. And we were all celebrating at dinner like we'd won the race. And I remember getting back to the room, and it was about 11:30 or something. I thought, oh, what have I done? Like, you just shouldn't be out doing that the night before. And my head was spinning a little bit from drinking so much champagne. But we got on the bus at 9 o'clock the next morning and went back out there, and we went up to the box up the top of the grandstand, and I think we were there at 10:30 or something like that.
And the owner's got the champagne out again and went to give me a glass. I said, no. I said, I can't. I said, I'm riding today. He goes, wow. He said, you are so professional. So I had a bit of a laugh to myself. But Danny and I then went and walked the track again and went over and had a look at the horse. And he did look great. And, you know, talking about Frankie, when I was sitting in the gates, there was a horse that had played up and it was going to be scratched. And wherever I've ridden in the world, the horse has to be taken out, vetted, scratched. It takes quite some time. So I went to get off my horse, and Frankie was next to me, and he said, you better, you know, get back on your horse. He said, because once this horse is out, he said, we're going to be off. And no sooner did I put my hands back on the reins, the gates opened. If he hadn't have said that, I would have been stuck in the gates.
Been a long way home after that.
Danny wouldn't have been happy. So, but he flew the gates. He was the first one out. He travelled like he was going to win all the way. And it was very easy. And I didn't appreciate the enormity of it at the time, but looking back now, it's you know, it's a special moment in my career, and one that I'm very proud of. And Aero Velocity was another great trip when we went to Japan. It had rained the day before, and we weren't sure if he was going to handle the conditions. Paul's mum had unfortunately passed away just prior to the race.
Paul O'Sullivan.
Paul O'Sullivan. Not the day. You know, I think it was a week beforehand. And you know, he looked like he was gone around the corner. And as Paul says, or has said quite often, he turned to his assistant trainer as he seemed to be struggling and going backwards, and said, "It's not going to happen today." And no sooner than he said that, I switched him from the inside rail towards the middle of the track, where there seemed to be a longer grass, and he got more traction, and he took off and got up on the line. It was, you know, it was very satisfying. It's very hard to win in Japan, and when I come back in, it was pretty emotional for a lot of people. But once again, you know, it's just great to be able to represent Hong Kong so well on the world stage. Our horses don't travel too often. In the last 10 years, you know, I've been very lucky with the Hong Kong horses that I've travelled with. Hopefully, I still have a few more trips left.
How important are records to you?
Records, you know, it's hard to say how much importance I place on them. I enjoy winning. I enjoy being successful. I enjoy just doing what I am doing. Records are just a byproduct of that. They're nice to have. They're nice to be remembered by. But at the end of the day, it is just racing. It is just a sport. And when I retire, the records probably won't mean too much.
Maybe I've misread you, but I sense that there's one record, number of HKIR winners, that you'd really like to have to yourself. You're level with Gerald Mosse, Hong Kong riding legend, on 8 HKIR winners. I sense that you'd really like to go ahead in that race. Oh,
of course, yeah. I still want to win those races, and I want to surpass Mosse and you know, have it all on my own. That's great. That is good, but you know, it's not the sole driver for me and why I do it. But it's definitely nice when you do have them. Yeah.
Slightly unfair question again, but of those 8 HKIR winners, which one or two do you particularly remember most fondly?
Oh, it's a tough question. They've all been great. They've all meant something. They all mean a lot. It's hard really to separate one from the rest, but if I had to pick out one, I suppose it would be Aero Velocity's second international sprint, just because I'd had such a long relationship with him. He'd been through so much.
And I detected a strong bond between you, Paul, and the owner, Daniel Young.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Daniel was always great to ride for, and still is. He enjoys his racing. But the horse, I suppose, coming out of Paul's stable, where it was not one of the top stables in Hong Kong, it's always nice to see the underdogs being given a little bit of a chance sometimes, and Paul handled the horse really, really well. He'd come back from adversity. where he had the heart arrhythmia and colic as well. He'd taken us to Japan, he'd taken us to Singapore, and we thought it was his best was behind him. It was most probably going to be his swan song race, and he seemed to pull that performance. It was like he knew this was maybe going to be his last chance, and he just pulled that out of nowhere and threw himself over the line. And watching the emotion on Daniel's face in the replay after the horse wins, I think just sums up the emotion that was involved or felt by everyone with that win on that day.
Top sportsmen very rarely dwell on what's gone, on the past. But if I could give you a time machine, maybe a Longines time machine, take you back and give you another chance of maybe one that got away, is there a ride or a race that stands in your mind that you think that didn't go quite how we hoped it would?
I don't think so, because when I've been close, I think they've sort of all won, and there's not really much else that could have been done. But if there was one decision I could have made over another, it would have been last year in the Cup. I would have gone with Glorious Forever over Time Warp.
Did you have that option?
I did. Leading into it, I did. But you know, in the Sasa, Time Warp carried 133 and Glorious Forever carried 113, and Time Warp beat him. It was very hard to foresee what was going to happen at that point in time. But it's one decision I would like to be able to go back and change if I could.
Let's bring it right back to the present, and if you will, take us to a place where me and most people watching would never get a chance to be, the jockey's room on HKIR day. Different cast of players, and I'm guessing a different vibe than normal.
It's more of a party vibe.
Really?
Yeah, because there's so many new faces in the room, or faces that we know, but they're new faces because they're not there week in, week out. And you get to catch up with all your mates and people you get to see from back home and around the world when you travel, and everyone's in a good spirit, they're in a good mood. There's a lot of chatter that goes on, and there's a lot of energy in the room. And I think that's just a reflection of what the actual race day is like as well.
Almond Eye is being billed as a potential star attraction of this year's HKIR. First question, how big a catch is she for Hong Kong racing right now, and is she beatable in the Hong Kong Cup?
Well, she's the biggest catch of any horse that's racing at the moment, I believe. You know, she's unbelievable. I've loved her right from the beginning of her career, and so much so when I was in Dubai earlier this year, I asked the stable for one of her jackets, which I wear quite often at track work, which is nice to have. But she's a phenomenal horse. What she's been able to achieve over there, track records, you know, she is something special. Is she beatable? It's horse racing. Anything can happen. Everyone's beatable on their day, but I think all things being equal, she should be too good.
Possibly 12 months too late, but I believe you're going to ride Glorious Forever against Almond Eye in the Cup this time around?
Yeah, that's right. I might have left my run a year too late, like you said. But, you know, it'll be nice to be in the race with her. I obviously raced against her one other time in Dubai, and being able to be up that close to her, especially in the heat of the battle, to a certain extent, walking around behind the gates, having a look at her, seeing how she's handling things, and then most probably watching her go past me.
It's quite possible that you'll be on the favourite in each of the other three HKIR Group 1s. Let's talk about the three horses in particular, one by one. Exultant has been a fantastically consistent and progressive horse in Hong Kong for a long time now.
Yeah, he just doesn't really do anything wrong, does he? He turns up and runs his usual honest race every single time. He's really developed into a horse everyone would love to have. He's got a heart bigger than himself. He's got a set of lungs bigger than me. And he throws it all out there every time. You know, he's beginning better these days which is great because he's putting himself in more of a reasonable position to be able to strike and take advantage of that instead of being last and off the bit and not being able to keep up and having so much work to do. And I'm sure that that's part of the reason that his form has become so much more consistent. But as he's developed and we've been able to find the keys to him, making those mid-race moves and put them to the sword and making it proper staying tests, he loves that. He's going into the race in really good form. I just hope that last run hasn't taken the edge off him and hasn't flattened him. And if it hasn't, he should be a decent chance.
His dance card includes some very, very special victims. And last year's Hong Kong Vase, he had Cox Plate winner Liz Gracia behind. He had the subsequent arc hero Valgeist behind him. This time around, he's coming up against a Derby winner, Anthony Van Dyke, and the globe-trotting Deirdre. So it's a stellar cast again.
It's always a strong race, and it's a race that Hong Kong historically struggles to win. In the whole time I've been here,
Hong Kong's won it twice in 10 years, and I believe you were aboard.
I've been on both times. Yeah, I think they've only won it 3 times
ever.
All up, ever.
So Dominant was the first one for you, and Exultant last year.
So let's see if we can go back to back. It's not an easy race to win because the internationals are so much stronger than our horses over this distance. But he's shown that this is a suitable distance for him and probably his pet distance. We've just got to hope that he can turn up in his best form.
Don't want to look too far ahead, but is he the horse who could take you abroad to a major show like Dubai for Hong Kong and fly the flag?
Yeah, sure. He's at this stage definitely going to Dubai this year, so I'll look forward to that. And he may even go to Japan at the end of the season as well.
I can't think of a horse, young horse, who's made the same sort of impression in Hong Kong for a long time as Athero has in his short career. It's astonishing to think that this horse, 3 years of age, 1,250 pounds, muscles on his muscles, had never even seen a racecourse until April 2019. And on Sunday at Sha Tin, he is likely to be favourite to beat 6 Group 1 winners, including Mr. Stunning, Beat the Clock, etc., etc. It's a phenomenal rise to the top, this horse.
It has been, and he's an impressive horse to look at. It's the first thing you notice when you see him. He's got a lot of things to like about him, and he's got a great attitude to go with it. His Achilles heel, if you could call it, is the start. He can sometimes be a little bit slow out because he's so big. He struggles to fit in the barriers, and he just takes a little bit of an uncomfortable or awkward stride for the first couple of strides. But once he gathers his balance and gets his momentum, he's a very quick horse for the size of him, and he can easily take up the running once he gets rolling. He gets in with a lightweight. It looks like he's got everything before him. He's not the finished product, but he's got all the raw natural ability. And we're looking forward to it. It's a good, strong test, but we're hopeful that he's up for it.
Very early in his career, sort of quote filtered through that you were talking about this as something sensational, and then I think you just reversed it a little and tried to just dampen the expectations. Was that just you being the cautious Purton?
Well, it's always easy to stamp any horse as the next big thing. But I did say to some people after I won his second race on him, I thought he'd win the international sprint in December. He just gave me the feel of a special horse. But like I said, he had the raw natural ability. He didn't have the brain to go with it. He still doesn't have the brain. We're trying to piece him together as best we can. So I think as he continues through his career, mentally he should just continue to get better and better. He's got to learn to handle the pressure a little bit better. We did see first up this season, he just had a brain explosion. He wasn't quite fit enough for that race either. We left him underdone, knowing that December was going to be grand final day, and that may have been a little bit of a mistake as well. But you learn from those mistakes, and he certainly has done nothing wrong since.
Where would you like to be drawn, ideally?
It's hard to say. Middle of the line would be good. I'd just like a couple of slow horses either side of me so he can get out of the gates okay.
And you're having to try your best to get down to, I think, 117 pounds. A straightforward question for the civilians among us. How does a guy who's already as lean as a whip take a couple more pounds off?
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. Fortunately, in this case, I had 7 weeks' notice that it was possibly going to be on the cards. So I've continually just tried to take it off bit by bit, slowly. I've been on more of a liquid diet than a solid diet, and I wouldn't have been able to do it a couple of years ago, but I've changed my diet in recent times because of the kidney stones I had, and also because I view things a little bit differently now, and I'm sure that that's given me the opportunity to be able to do it. I'm obviously not there yet. I've still got a few days up my sleeve. I'm not going to be like a boxer stepping in the ring a week or 10 days out from his fight at the weight he needs to be. It's all about peaking on the day at the right time. And I have no questions at all about making the weight. I will make the weight, and hopefully it's going to be worth it.
Beauty Generation has been a stellar horse in Hong Kong for a good 2 years now. He's dipped not once but twice. Has your faith in him dipped in any way?
Well, the alarm bells are certainly ringing. It's not what you like to see from your 2-time Horse of the Year and your defending champ in this race. He's going for the three-peat this year. He had a small excuse second up. We tried to blame the fact that he wasn't able to lead for his performance, but looking back in hindsight now, it probably wasn't the reason at all, because at his last start he was able to lead, but he still wasn't the same horse. The problem may have been, first up, when we sent him to the races, quite big in condition, and he put up such a brave performance or great performance, broke the track record, carried a big weight, giving a lot of weight away to the rest of the horses. It appears as if it may have just flattened him a little bit, and he is a little bit older. He just hasn't seemed interested in his last couple of runs. But the positives are that I know how good he is. We do get another swing in the weights, another 5-pound swing off the 2 horses that beat us last time. He's going to be fitter again from the run. He's still not quite at his proper race weight yet. And hopefully I can draw outside and slowly just take my time and come across instead of having to be too aggressive from the gate. And if you can combine all those things and find the spark that is missing from him, there is a chance that he could turn it back on again. The horse that worries me the most is the horse from Japan.
Indy Champ.
Indy Champ.
Zac, now to Beauty Generation, sensational horse for Hong Kong in the last couple of years. Highest rated miler in the world, but finally beaten, not once, but twice. Has your faith dipped because of that?
Well, the alarm bells are ringing for sure. He's certainly not racing as well as he has previously at the moment. We tried to make an excuse for him second up when he wasn't able to lead, but looking back in hindsight now, it probably wasn't that at all. It was just the way he was going at the time, because his last start he was able to lead. And, you know, although he wasn't beaten far, still a disappointing performance. It wasn't the horse we've come to expect. But if you want to try and spin a few positives on it, we sent him to the races first up, and the heaviest racing condition he's ever been in, and it may have just flattened him a little bit. He's getting closer to his proper racing weight now, and he's going to meet the 2 horses that beat him home last time, 5 pounds better at the weights. So we're hopeful that if he draws out, he can just take his time to come across and may be able to turn the tables. But the horse I worry about the most is the Japanese horse.
Indy Champ.
Indy Champ, yeah. He's been doing great things over there the last year, and his last win was very impressive. If he brings that performance here, you know, it'd be hard to hold him out. But, you know, I know how good my bloke can be when he finds his spark, and when he wants to do it, when he turns it on, and let's hope he's got that one final big performance left in him.
Your horse is 7 and Father Time's undefeated.
He is, yeah. I'm a bit disappointed because I thought he'd have another season at that level. He just felt so good, he was going so good. There was no sign, no inclination that he was about to dip in form at all. And once they start to do that at his age, Father Time does catch up. So we just got to hope that we can get a little bit more out of him before we say goodbye.
John Moore didn't get where he is by giving away all his state secrets, but to your understanding, what does John mean when he says, I think we can tweak a couple of things?
It could mean a lot of things. I can't really answer that. I can't look into John's brain and know what he's going to do. He's mentioned a few things, and John's a great trainer. He has been for a number of years. It's going to be sad to see him be forcefully retired at the end of the season. We've had a lot of success together and a lot in recent times, and I have the greatest of confidences in him to be able to turn these horses out in the condition they need to be on the big day. And if anyone's going to be able to turn this guy around, then let's hope it's John.
To go back in time, 10 years to be exact, only one horse has won 3 HKIR races. They were all the mile. It was Good Bar, and curiously, he was beaten in the same 2 lead-up races that Beauty Generation was beaten in.
Okay, so that may make me feel a little bit more comfortable, but Good Bar had a different racing style. He used to get back, and sometimes the tempo didn't suit. Obviously was carrying big weights, trying to run down younger horses as well, but it can be done, and I'm hoping it will be done. Exultant,
Athero, Beauty Generation. Which of that trio has most to prove, and which of that trio has least to prove?
I don't think Exultant or Beauty Generation need to prove anything. They've been there, they've done it. Athero hasn't really proved himself on the big stage yet, so he's got everything to prove.
Change the subject somewhat. Hong Kong life in general, less is more in Hong Kong racing, 2 meetings a week. Does that emphasis on quality, 2 fixtures every 7 days, is that really helpful to you physically and mentally?
Of course it is, and it's one of the great things about being in Hong Kong, as well as the off-season we get to have as well. Everyone looks forward to those 2 meetings, and it's one of the first things I noticed as a jockey when I come here. Having to ride so many days in Australia, back home I was always in the car driving to track work trials, races, riding, you know, a lot of horses every year. And then you come here and I keep telling everyone I'm just a part-time jockey, which I am only. I ride 1 night a week and 1 afternoon. So life as a jockey here has got a lot of advantages and a lot of positives.
Talk about rivalries, and there have been plenty in your 12 years here. Your rivalry with Douglas White was absolutely intense, and you finally ended his run of 13 championships. That was a pretty fraught relationship for a while, I believe. Yeah,
well, Douglas and I never really spoke. We never got on. We were never friends. We never had a falling out as such, or never had any fight as such. It was just the case that we didn't talk. And then, you know, as he was trying to protect his home turf, and I was trying to make a name for myself. And, you know, I do owe a lot to Douglas because I had to learn to operate like he did and raise the bar and take myself to his level. But, you know, I felt that I was up for the challenge, and a couple of seasons out I could feel that I was starting to get the support and the momentum to be able to take him down. And you can't stay on top forever. Everyone's got a shelf life. I have one too. There'll be someone else snapping at my heels soon.
You've ridden for Douglas since he started training?
Yeah, he's fairly easy to ride for. He's flexible to a certain extent with his instructions. The horses I've ridden for him so far have been fairly easy horses to ride, fairly uncomplicated races. But he's quite critical of his jockeys as well, which is one thing I've picked up.
Talk about a different rivalry. Yourself and Joe Moreira have had some epic scraps on the racetrack and for titles. Your first title came against Douglas. Your second title came in a tremendous battle with Joe Moreira, where you came from, I think, at least 15 back. That must have been a memorable few months.
It was. I remember I went to ride in Australia, and I just served one suspension, or I had one suspension about to start. And I got suspended down there, and I was pleading with the stewards because they were wanting to give me, it might have been 10 days or something, and I ended up getting it down to 7 days, which meant I could ride one extra Hong Kong meeting for the season, and I only won by 2 winners. I only beat Joe by 2 winners.
On the final day.
So having that extra meeting to ride at may very well have been the difference. But I went from 2 winners behind him before I started my suspension to coming back. I was 15 winners behind him at the end of April or early May. And then in May, I think I rode 24 or 25 winners or something. So I went from being 15 to behind to all of a sudden I got to June and I was in front of him, and I was like, well, that was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. And for a moment there, Joe pretended he was going to give up. He tried to tell everyone it was over and he wasn't focusing on it and blah, blah, blah. But I knew Joe too well and I knew him better. And I knew he wasn't giving up. And he continued to fight. And it was good. It went down to the last day, which is great. It keeps everyone interested. I think I sealed it with 2 or 3 races to go on the card. On Rise High, who I will come up again in the International on Sunday.
Last year, Joe off the scene for the first 3 months, gate to wire, impressive. This year, Joe's back in town, he's hungry, you're hungry. Very early days, but it has the makings of something special again. Yeah,
it does. Hopefully it turns into a good battle. Like I said earlier, I was a bit stupid early in the season. I did too many favours for too many owners and too many trainers, and cost myself a lot of winners. Up until 4 or 5 weeks ago, I'd missed something like 34 winners.
I spoke to someone who'd been in the inquiry room, racegoer rather than an industry person, and I'd never been in an inquiry, and I asked them, is it like good cop, bad cop in there? And he said, mate, I didn't see any good cops in there.
There's no one in there helping you out. You're hung out to dry. You're trying to fend off all the challenges.
Talk about family. Interested by your wife, Nicole, is the daughter of a very famous jockey, Jim Cassidy. She's been in racing all her life. As a big-time rider here, is that a help or a hindrance that she knows of all the pressures of being at the top?
I think as a child, her father did a good job of not bringing racing home. So although she would go to the races every now and then and she understood what he did, she didn't understand all the inner workings of it, and was not made to feel the pressure or made aware of it. And when I come to Hong Kong, I think that was a good thing, because she was very naive in many ways, and I would come home having run 3rd or 4th on a horse, and she'd be very excited that I had a 3rd for the day, and I'd be like, are you kidding me, like 3rd? And I'd just shake my head and roll my eyes, but she'd always stay positive and help me try and stay focused and on track. And now, she's probably gone the other way. She takes too much notice of what's going on, and it affects her too much, and I try and tell her not to worry about things. So now I'm trying to keep her upbeat and keep her positive, but she obviously comes a lot of the dinners with me, with the owners, goes to the races, living in the building with all the other jockeys and trainers, and being very involved is it's quite a big burden, and she handles it well, but I think sometimes she could probably just do with putting the heels up a little bit more and just let me get on with it.
You're in a hazardous business. It comes to call every now and again for friends and colleagues. Does that stay locked away, that discussion, or is it something that comes up from time to time? Oh,
I don't take too much of it home. I'm the type of person, as I said before, being a manager, I like to shoulder the responsibility and the blame on my own shoulders, and don't like to involve too many other people in it, especially not Nicole. She's got to worry about raising and looking after the kids and running them off to school and sport and doing all that sort of stuff. She doesn't need to be worrying about what's going on in my life.
On that subject, two very energetic youngsters, Cash and Roxy, what if one or both came to you 10 years down the line, 12 years down the line and said, Dad, we want to give it a go the way you do?
You know, of course, I'll support them in whatever they want to do, whatever decision that is, but I think we're pretty safe with Roxy. She likes riding horses, but she likes the idea of it, but she's not in love with riding them, whereas Cash, he does enjoy it and he wants to get on them as much as he can. So I'll have to try and guide him into something else, I think, but if he wants to stay on the horseback, then hopefully he turns out all right.
Talk about time away from the family. Very keen golfer. How's the swing?
I haven't played recently. I can get quite frustrated with my game if it's not going where I want it to go, then I suspend myself for a while and I'm giving myself a little bit of a break.
Who's the one person in Hong Kong racing who you get worried if you're playing them for money?
Oh, there's a few good golfers out there. Tony Cruz is probably the best of us at the moment, but he wouldn't play for 5 cents. He just does it for the fun of it. Obviously, Casper likes to have a bet on the golf course, but you know, he's a tough competitor to play with. He's got a very good short game, but it's more enjoyable just to get out and have a walk around, get in some fresh air, and still do something that you're relatively competitive, but it's just a nice day out.
And other interests, food's one. I know that, and fashion's definitely one, hence the fact we're here today at Brown House.
Yeah, well, they do a good job here, so no doubt they've fitted you up by the look of that one. You're looking quite smart there.
Just the pocket square, sadly. You're the one blazing the trail with the blazer. Thanks for your insight, Zac. Fascinating to chat to you today. Just want to talk briefly about the future. I don't know whether you set short, medium, or long-term targets, but you have the prize money record here, you have the Group 1 record here, the HKIR outright record is within touching distance. 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years on this pace, your current pace, and Douglas White's all-time Hong Kong record of, I think, 1,813 winners, that could be on the horizon. Is it at the moment too distant, or is it in the back of your mind?
It's probably too distant at the moment.
You're on about 1,050 something right now?
Yeah, still a long way from 1,800, isn't it? Yeah, I just keep doing what I'm doing. I knew I had Tony Cruz's record in sight, so I was chasing that. I knew I wasn't far off 1,000, so I was chasing that. So I do get goals and go after them and hopefully try and get them, records, whatever they are. Douglas's one is a big number. He was here for a very long time. You know, if I'm still riding in 6 years' time, there's no doubt I will have gone past him by then. Maybe I won't be riding when I'm 49, like Frankie is. I definitely know that. But the closer I get to it, I suppose the more appealing it becomes. We'll just see how things go over the next couple of years.
And just very quickly, last line to finish. What does Longines HKIR week mean to Hong Kong racing as a whole? You've seen plenty of them now.
It's a great week. Everyone around town talks about it. Everyone around the world globally talks about it. There's a large spotlight put on it. It's fun, it's energetic. Everyone gets out to the breakfast to see all the international horses come out. They put on a lovely spread of food there. Not that I get to eat much. You have the barrier draw, you have media calls, the IJC night, the gala, and then you finish with the main day. It's, I think it's the best packaged race meeting of the year, and I know I enjoy it, and I hope everyone else does too.
Zac Purton, thank you very much.
No problem.